can really much calibrate the amount of information that I've got on the slides. So I don't want to talk about the banal, all-known stuff that all of you know. So that's why, to help me calibrate the knowledge, I want you to be engaged with me, all right? So I want you to raise your hands if you have taken the IELTS test before. I'm not going to ask how much it was. So, okay. Is there anyone who has registered for the test and is going to take the exam in coming 3 months? Okay. Is there any of you who are currently taking up IELTS courses? Good. All right. Anybody who's got a problem with true, false, not given questions? All right. Anyone who has trouble with multiple choice questions in the listening part? Hell yeah. Okay. So anyone who wants to boost up faster the speaking component of the exam? So you see? And you really think that you are the only one who has these problems. But like 99% of the guys come and they say, I've got problems with true, false, not given. I've got problems with yes, no, not given. So no one comes and says, I've got problems with part 1 of the listening. You know, and no one comes and says, don't teach me writing. I know a lot about writing, right? So, and I hope today, look, one more question. Is that good if you know a lot of hints of IELTS? What do you think about it? You don't think so. So raise your hand if you think that knowing a lot of hints ain't no good. Not good. So only one? Okay. Because I also think so. If you think about it, you know, there are hundreds, if not thousands of books available on how to become a millionaire, right? If you Google and search, how can I become a millionaire? You're going to find like, I don't know, if not thousands, like hundreds of books available on that topic. And if you look around, there aren't thousands around you people who are actually becoming millionaire. And then if you ask the guys, how do you get 9 in the speaking part? They know the theory, right? They will tell you, oh, you have to be fluent, yet not even knowing what fluency is. If you ask, what is fluency? It's like, you know, when you talk a lot. Or whenever my students take the speaking part of the exam, they give me a call and say, Ms. Barno, I've answered all the questions. Will I get 9? So this is what usually happens. Or I've written all the tasks, task 1, task 2. Will I get 8 for that, right? And then the honest answer is, I don't know. Because if you answered all the questions, it does not automatically mean that you will get 9 degree. And the trouble with the IELTS is that there are hundreds, thousands of books, IELTS secrets, IELTS hacks, become 9 overnight. So take that pill, go to bed, wake up in the morning being 9, right? There are thousands of books available on that topic. And why not many people are getting 9 in speaking? Why not many people are getting 8, right? So there is one very interesting topic in the IELTS currently. If you're going to take the exam in coming 3 months, you're going to have that question, hopefully. It's about intelligence in part 1. So IELTS examiner is asking you, what is intelligence, right? What is smartness? What kind of people are clever? Are the people who know a lot of information clever? I don't think so. I think those people who know not a lot, but can actually actualize and apply it in the practice can be called clever. So if you know like 101 hints, it doesn't really tell anything about your IELTS prep. But if you know 10 hints and you can actually apply them, this means a lot, right? And I really hope today all of you, including every single of you, are going to walk out of this room not only knowing those 6 hints or hacks, tips. I don't know, hack is a sexy word. So we decided to call it not IELTS tips, but IELTS hacks, okay? I really hope that you will walk out of this room not only knowing those hacks, but also being able to execute on them and being able to use them. So let's get the party started, right? So what is IELTS? International, English, language, testings, okay. Anyone who wants to add? This is a test. Okay. Future opportunity. I like that answer. What is IELTS? A sheet of paper. What is IELTS? I've got friends from different walks of life in different parts of the world. Some of them are foreigners. And they know that I do teaching. I say, like, I'm an English teacher. They know that I'm a teacher. Not all of them know that I'm an IELTS teacher. And when I tell them that I've been doing IELTS teaching for 8 years already, they're like, 8 years teaching only one test? It's like, why in Uzbekistan IELTS is such a big thing? Why is such a big deal, right? And then here are the common things I think that would be fair at least to our country. What is IELTS? Is the measurement of your success rate. If you have 8, you're successful. If you have 9, you're super successful. So what is IELTS in Uzbekistan? This is letting the other people know that you're cool, you know? And then when students come, they say, I desperately need to get 8. And I'm like, why do you need to get 8? Is that what your university requires? Is admission officer is asking for the 8 band? So what makes you desperately want that score? And they tell me, because my friend got 7. I want to show him that I can get 8, right? So, and it makes me feel like, you know, we want to get 8, we want to get high band because we need to show the people that we are cool. And then that was something I did not know, but my students told me. It increases your chances for marriage, IELTS. Like in that joke, you know, Sochi came to the girl's house and then they asked like, what is the score your daughter has? Listening 9? She's gonna be good killing, right? Because she knows how to listen. So, and obviously guys don't wanna marry a girl who has 9 speaking, right? Because she can talk a lot. So just like in that meme joke that went viral, so IELTS somehow, as it turns out, contributes to your chances of successful marriage. So, and now in Uzbekistan, when you apply for the job, people do not ask, what is your English level like? They ask like, what is your IELTS like, right? So you applying for Tashmi, I don't know, you applying for any other direction in Uzbekistan. So what is your English level does not exist in our dictionary. So now what we have is like, what is your IELTS score? So summary, IELTS is everything. So at least for Uzbekistan, right? And that explains why I found my job in the IELTS sphere. So, and what is really heart-aching is we started changing normal English. We don't speak normally. When students come and tell me, so you got 9, right? You got 7 times 8.5 in the speaking part. Like, tell me those hints. I say, speak naturally, speak normal English, okay? Speak like normal American can speak. So how native people talk. Not like, my loneliness is killing me. My isolation, I find myself and brings misery onto my life, right? So are you like from 18th century, right? So instead of saying, where are you going? When your mom asks you, where are you going? You say, to buy some bread. I want to buy some bread. I'm going to shop, right? But IELTS students say, I'm heading at the moment to a shop in order to purchase some bread, right? So you see how weird it sounds. Or like, I promise that you will never find another like me. Or I assure you. That's how we talk. We started creating, so we usually say American English, British English, right? But I think that would be fair to have another category, IELTS English, right? I assure, under no circumstances. And I'm telling you, and now I assure you, this is not how you talk for 9. All right? Because if IELTS was IELTS, International Uzbek Language Testing System, and if you were asked by the examiner who's Uzbek, who wants to put you 9 for your Uzbek language, right? So what do? You say, men talabama hozirda shu yerda o'qiyapman, right? You talk normally. And then when you start talking like from 19th century, examiner, of course, will like, oh my God, what's wrong with these people? Okay. So, because I did not know, but approximately I know, when people come, they don't really much complain about listening and reading part. Though about the reading, they started complaining a lot more. But they usually complain about writing and speaking. So in the morning, I'm having a message on my channel, the guy is saying, so why writing is such a global problem in Uzbekistan? Why do many people do not get like 7 and the higher band? And now tell us something that can be done about it. And I told the guy, writing, according to worldwide statistics, is the weakest skill of everyone. Not only in Uzbekistan, this is such a big issue. This is everywhere a big issue. Because when you want to formulate your ideas in a written form, you have to be like 3 times more cautious. Because you are not there physically available for the examiner to say, hold on, you didn't get me. I really wanted to say that I'm against animal testing. You can say that. But when you're talking, you can clarify, you can add up, which makes speaking a little easier compared to the writing. So there are lots of unturned stones, actually. So today, we will try to touch through these 4 areas bit by bit, and I hope I will raise the most burning problems, right? Before we get down to the actual stuff, this is the tweet of Elon Musk that went viral. Let's read it together. Working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks in a year, and people still calling me lucky. So when students tell me like, when you talk like fluently. You do not have that obstacle language barrier. Like, how come? And I'm like, So at the very beginning of my teaching career, I would enter the class at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. Okay, let's not lie. 10 a.m. in the morning, and I would walk out at 9 p.m. And then if not me, who should become fluent? Because I was talking in English more than I was talking in my native language. When I was actually talking to my mom, it was so hard because I was translating from English. When my mom would make another gossip about neighbors, ladies, they gossip a lot. And then I would literally translate. It's like, har doim qo'shnilarni o'ta yashilroqda, and my mom would like, you have to have a rest. She wouldn't understand me. And I caught myself in the thought that I even started translating the English proverb. You've got that saying, right? Grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, It always seems like somebody else has greener grass than you have it. So I was translating my mom that stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, holy cow. So I started even translating that stuff. So, and at the same time, that would be fair to make a little disclaimer. That's what I always say to my students. Working hard work is not a key for success. That's what you have to understand. If you sit in front of a computer for 10 hours nonstop, right, it doesn't mean you're doing a hard work. You know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you can put in 2 hours of work, but you can be more productive compared to those 5 hours that you've been just wasting. So do not practice self-deception. So doing 5 reading tests does not change your mark. I'm sorry. So maybe doing 1 test, but understanding your 5 fingers, why you made those 5 mistakes, 15 mistakes that you made. You can blindfoldedly in the middle of the night, if somebody wakes you up and says, why is that yes? You can explain that. That brings you closer to an ideal band. Because you know why you made it, and next time when you see a similar question, you will know how to fix that. So I believe in the power of intentional and conscious hard work. Consciously what you want. It's not like other guy got 7.5 and you really have to get 8. That's not something that I'm talking about. Or another stuff. If hard work pays off, show me a rich monkey, right? Oh, donkey. Okay. So hack number 1. So set your priorities right. Say, you've already said that you're taking your test in coming 3 months, right? So do you know that changing the mark in the speaking and writing part, even half a band, would take more time compared to the listening and the reading part? If you are interested in getting high band, no matter what subscore you get in those 4 skills, that would be wise of you to allocate precious amount of time, the only commodity that you have, I believe, onto something that can bring you closer to the perfect result. For example, if your listening is 7, right, that is more clever to invest the time that you have limited before your exam to make 7, 8, instead of trying to change your 5.5 into 7 in the writing part, because that would take more time. So, and no one can give you guarantee how long it will take. For some people, it takes one class. There was a girl, Malika. So no one came on that day. There were only 2 guys in the class, and I decided to have a class anyways. And one class has turned her vision towards writing upside down, and she scored 7 in the writing part. In that girl, it took 1 class. In some guys, it takes 1 year. It takes 3 months. No one can actually tell you how long will it take you to come closer to 7, 7.5 in the writing part. And the same applies for the speaking component of the exam. If you know that your examination, you've already registered for your test, and the exam officials and admission officials at your university are asking you to get 7 or 7.5, that would be judicious way, Jewish method of you to invest your time into maximizing your score that you are already good at. And obviously, this is usually in the listening and reading part. So that is not to mean don't do anything to improve your speaking or writing. It's just like when your time is very limited. I oftentimes see students writing endless amount of essays, the same mistake over and over and over again, right? And instead, they could take the listening, because listening will change faster through practice. But writing and speaking will not change faster through practice. It will require sometimes shift of your mindset. Sometimes, for example, in the writing part, right, you really have to have ideas to write about. You've got an essay topic, and it's asking you about deforestation, I don't know, right, juvenile delinquency. You've heard that, but you do not really much have ideas on that. So that's what I'm talking about. In the listening and reading, you do not really have to have knowledge to apply. But in the writing and speaking, you can't just go numb. When I got 9, I was asked a lot about, in the part 3, artificial intelligence. And I've taken a course, crash course on YouTube on AI. It was very handy. I was like, that's what I'm going to talk about. I've taken the course. I'm going to talk about all those stuff that I've learned on YouTube. So I used that. So call me lucky. Maybe I was. But I believe that luck equals to preparation. So if you're prepared, you think you're lucky. Oh, I know it. So you know it because you got ready for that, right? And the same applies for the writing. Usually students fail in the writing part, not because they don't know how to write. You don't have to be genius. You write by hand on a paper with a pencil. So, but knowing what to write is the trouble. They usually say, I don't know what to say. I don't know. I've never heard about that, right? So in part 1, I was asked about calculators. Calculators? Like, hard to talk for 9 band for calculators. What can you say? So there are 10 digits. You press a button, right? Mathematics. So you got me. If you have a limited amount of time, find out what is that skill you are good at and make it the best. Instead of investing your precious and valuable time into something you are bad at, you want to make it good because it takes longer time. That's what I'm saying. If you're a teacher of IELTS, you have a student, he has got 1 month to go, right? And you say, your part 3 is bad. Let's practice your part 3. I think you'll be wasting time. Because first of all, for 1 cue card, there are 200 questions prepared. And there are 35 cue cards, and multiply 35 to 200, right? It's impossible to get ready. So unless you have some knowledge about it, you know. But you would help your students more if you ask them to practice and talk over reading, talk over listening. Like, how did you get it? So why is that yes? Why is that 4? Why did you choose the heading for the B? And etc. So hack number 2, apply 80-20 rule. Anybody knows that? Okay, I'll give you one rudimentary example. Girls will understand me. Maybe guys will understand me too. You've been lazy all day long. You've done a little task and everyone comes and praises you, what a good girl you are. They're like, oh, you've been working all day so hard. Everywhere you're so clean. And then you've done a lot of job. And then sometimes you put in a lot of effort. You do a lot of stuff, but people do not notice. And why is that? So this is the guy who has observed it and have come to a understanding that there is this principle, and it doesn't only apply to an economy, but applies to all the walks of the life. His name was Pareto, and that's why the principle became known as the Pareto Principle, 80-20 rule. States that for many phenomena, 80% of a result comes from 20% of the effort. So, which means for 80% of success, sometimes you put in only 20% of the hard work, and the vice versa. So he has observed in Italy, 20% of people had 80% of wealth. And 80% of people in Italy owned only 20% of wealth. And it was like so unfair. And then in IELTS, it's the same. So applying that rule would sound something like that one. So how many questions there are in the IELTS reading and listening? What a stupid question, 30. So, and then if you take like 40, how much would be 80% of 40? Like 30, 32, right? 30, 32 of the questions in the IELTS listening and reading can be done with the help of one technique. And 20%, which is like 8 questions, like at times like 10 questions, they are the hardest one. 20% of the questions require another technique. And that is very stupid of many candidates to try to think like, how can you apply the same technique and get the same results, right? So there are some types of the questions that require another technique. And if you are going to use the same technique that you use for the 80% of the questions in the listening and reading, you're not going to ace them. So that's what I want to talk about. Yeah, these are the questions that require specific answers. Applies for the listening, applies for the reading too. So for the reading, filling in the gap, table completion, completion of any types of the questions that will go inside the 80% of the types of the questions that do not really much require your thorough analysis and elimination and harder skills. You basically, in the case of reading, for example, scan, skim, and reach to the answer. You are like A, and then, okay, that's an article A. I'm going to look for the noun. I'm going to find the spot, copy, paste, and you reach it. And when you ask a student, how did you come to that correct answer? Probably student will not be able to explain that. And this is completely normal. And that's why those friends of yours, I'm sure you have your friends who got 8, 8.5, or 9 in the reading part. So how did you get it? They say, I don't read. I don't do reading. I don't read the text. And at the beginning, it sounds very counterintuitive. How do you don't read but still score 8 or 8.5, right? But those people have really much mastered those 80% of the questions. Because for the 80% of the questions, you don't have to read. You have to just search. All right, so I'm going to show you with the example too. And what are those 20%, the hardest questions? 20% of the questions will really give you a hard time. They are those questions that take longer time. So tell me, what is the hardest question? Some of the hardest questions. Yes, no. Agree that yes, no is harder than true, false. It's harder. I hope you know that there is a big difference between true, false, and yes, no, right? And then if your friend said, there is no problem, if you said true, but the answer was yes, actually there is a big problem. So they are not the same. For one thing at least, if they were the same, why would they ever bother them calling yes, no, and true, false, right? Think logically. Why would they ever bother? Like, why is that true, false? Why is that yes, no, if they were the same? So yes, no, matching the heading. And today we've got that fashionable type of a question that is appearing every time in the third passage's few questions. What is the writer doing in the paragraph B with an example of X? So what is the purpose of the writer in the paragraph C? This is what I'm talking about. So matching the heading, not matching the paragraph, because matching the paragraph is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Matching the heading. So this is multiple choice question in the reading part that says, what is the writer doing? That asks you global understanding of it. And yes, no, given questions. 3 questions are the hardest ones. And again, let's crunch some numbers too. So we have 40 questions, right? And then not everyone gets 9. So 39 and 30 stands for 9 band. So it means that There is one question, usually, one question that is potentially designed for the 9 guy, and only 9 guy can understand. It's hard to find. If it's yes, no, you don't have to be that smart because you have 33.3% of the chance of finding the answer, right? You don't have to be that smart. But to explain why is that yes, you have to be smart. So one question designed for 9. There are usually 2 questions designed for 8.5. So there are 3-4 questions designed for 8. These are the hardest questions, both in the listening and in the reading. In the listening today, this has become those multiple choice questions in the section 3. Long ones. Both the options and the questions. They are the hardest ones. They are designed for 8+ guys. So, and when I say students, like, it's kind of hot day, though it hasn't, so it's not yet summer, it's kind of hot, right? So, and I asked the guys, what is the question I asked? It's like, you didn't ask any question. And I'm like, I asked it a question. I said, it's kind of hot. Do you feel it? It's not summer, but still hot. I asked you a permission if I can switch off the air conditioning. So you do that in Uzbek language too. So we do namyok, sarcasm. So there was yes, no, no given the other day. We were discussing from Cambridge 14, and it would go like, unfortunately, governments are not going to bother with it. And then the question would say, government is highly likely to do nothing about the issue. Yes, no, no given. So, and students were like, not given. It doesn't say that they are not going to do anything. And I'm like, it's yes, because it was sarcasm. They said, surely government is not going to bother, right? It was sarcasm. It was saying that government is most likely not going to take any actions about it. So you have irony, kesatas in Uzbek, right? You do sarcasm in Uzbek, right? You do in your language this stuff. So does English speaker. And it takes you that level of understanding to ace these questions, all right? So, I'm back. Can we switch it off? So I think after a while, it just shuts down. So for the listening, we said it's multiple choice questions in the section 3. But back in the days, it used to be, hidden in every section. Like every section of the listening would contain one question designed potentially for 8 and higher guy. So, and that explains why one question in the listening section 1 is extremely hard. And why there is one question in obviously easy type of a question in the section 2 is harder compared to the other. So it used to be hidden in every single section. Just like in the reading part, every single passage would have one question potentially designed for the 8-1. But now you don't have to guess it. So today, hardest types of the questions are section 3's multiple choice questions. And in the reading, this is the third passage's few first questions that say, A, B, C, D. What is the writer doing in the paragraph A? What is the writer saying was the example of X? And etc. So, and how are you going to apply that rule? Again, if your purpose is to get 7-ish, 7.5-ish, right? It's like 30 to 34, 33, somewhere in between it, right? You have to become a master of the questions that belong to the 80% of those types of the questions. Let's see how you will do that. So, an example of surface questions in the reading. They lay on a surface. You don't have to enter deep to find the answers. So let's look at the question number 9. So you have to write one word and or a number. So basically, all you have to do is to analyze it in that way. Correct answer should be after 1960s, before 2001, or somewhere very close to the 2001, and you're looking for a noun because you've got an article the, right? And then you have to approximately start searching from late 11th century. So what do? You don't have to read actively. You start scanning and skimming. You go for the passage, and then your eyes scan 500. So 11th century. So you find it, you stop it, and you start reading only from that part. So if you have a problem with time management in the reading part. If 1 hour is not enough, because for those 80 questions, 80% of the questions, you haven't been, saving your energy. I call it энергосберегающий режим, like you have in your mobile phone, right? So you have to do the same. So because for the writing, you need your energy. And another explanation why many students fail in the writing, because arriving at the writing section, they are already super tired. They've been like sitting a lot for the listening and reading part, and then I bet you it takes a lot of energy of yours. I've taken the test 8 times, IELTS. Every time I go out of the exam room, I'm hungry as a wolf. I'm so hungry, I'm so tired. It's because it takes a lot of your energy. And the part of your body that eats a lot of energy is your brain. Even if you lie on the sofa and do nothing, 70% of the energy consumption of the calories is for the brain, because your brain takes the most energy. And what happens? Listening, you're alert, you're trying to find in the reading, so you are burning like a flame, and for the writing, you're already like a veggie. You're a vegetable. You're tired. Of course, you will not show maximum of your potential. And all those guys who also say, when I used to write the writing part, my teacher would put me 7 or would put me higher band. And how come in the real exam I got lower band? It's because they are doing it on purpose. So it's not what they are doing on the purpose. You've done it with the fresh brain. You've done it when you had full of energy. You were not tired. Of course, you will write it better, because you had a lot of power to do that. But when you've been completely exhausted, you don't want to even hold a pencil, let alone writing an essay, right? So what do you have to do? For the reading part, 80% of the questions, filling in the table, filling in the gap, filling in the sentences, whatever type of the question that requires you to write in a word, fill in, with the exception of multiple choice questions in the passage 3, matching the heading, and yes, no, no given, except for these 3 types of the questions, you have to work in the energy-saving mode. You have to economize your energy. And how do you do that? So you scan, you skim, you find the location. You only read that sentences where you have the keywords located. So for that, if you have pencil, pen, eraser, whatever you have, I would recommend you to take notes at the same time. So there is one golden rule that will help you a lot in the reading part. And golden rule of the reading is this one, keywords. Keywords are like magnet. All you have to do is to find the location of the keyword in the passage. And you have the right answer either inside the sentences before it, or sentences after it. But keywords are like magnet. What does magnet do? So it's closer. The answer is closer, like a magnet. So the correct answer is around the corner. You don't have to search for, sometimes students do classical mistake. They've got all the keywords in the paragraph B, but they find the answer in the C1. And I say, that's obviously wrong, because you broke the first rule of the reading. Keywords are like magnet. Where the keywords are, close is the answer. If you know it, so you will not be hesitating. I'm in 2 minds. I'm thinking about this one and that one. Always choose the option that is closer situated to the keywords. So when you know that rule, 80% of the questions will be aced with the help of that rule. You're going to take the keywords of the question. In our case, it was 500, right? What happened? So despite what happened, so it was withstanding. So 500 sculptures carved into niches throughout the monument. Incredibly, in January 2001, these ancient structures survived an earthquake. Earthquake. Remember the question? I hope you didn't forget it. So 2001. So despite what it could withstand, 2001. 2001, that, what happened? Ancient structure survived it. It survived earthquake. The correct answer is earthquake. So you were not supposed to read all the way from the beginning until you find the answer. Your eyes needs to find the location of the keywords. You stop right there, and then you read very thoroughly the place where you first saw the keywords. And correct answer should not be far from the keywords. So you ready for the next hint? So, okay. So In the pre-last exam I took, there were 19 true, false, not given, and yes or not given questions. Every single passage, I was like, oh my God, almost half of the exam was made up of true, false, and yes or not given. So, and still people call me lucky, right? So I was not lucky at all. It was like too much. So, and unfortunately, if you want to maximize your score, like 30, 32, you really have to ace that part. And hack number 3 would be make friends with true, false, not given. First off, did you know that there are different types of false? There are different types of false. So there are 3 types of false and no. All the theory applies both to the yes, no, and true, false. But yes, no is a little bit different from the true, false now for what we're gonna now read in the instruction part. So, and some types of the false are very obvious in terms of contradiction, while others are more sophisticated, and it's really hard to notice where exactly they are contradicting to one another. All the problems actually start with not reading the instructions, or it was the penetration of Uzbek or Russian. When I first announced the course, IELTS Intensive, number 1 question I was receiving was, why do you have intensive IELTS 3 times a week, only 1.5 hours? Intensive is supposed to be like 4 hours, 3 hours every day. And I'm like, no, intensive in Russian means many. In English, intensive, it means deepened. Everything starts with the misunderstanding of the words, either with the penetration of Russian or Uzbek. And unfortunately, oftentimes, these are the dictionaries. When students look up in the dictionary, I say, well, how do you translate the word contradiction, by the way? How do you translate? Противоречие. Yeah. What do you expect when you search? It says white, it says black. You know, this is like traditional expectation of the false. Students traditionally expect for such kind of contradiction. But the problem starts with the misunderstanding of the word contradiction. Or when they hear not given, they naively believe that not given is something that is not given at all. But not given has got 2 types too. So there is that quote I really like of the Abraham Lincoln. So if he had limited amount of time to chop down the tree, he would spend the most of the time on sharpening his axe and then chopping a tree, right? And Albert Einstein had something similar. If he was given 6 minutes to solve the world's hardest math problem, he would spend 4 minutes to reading the instruction, 1 minute to searching for the fastest way of solving that math problem, and 1 minute only to an actual solving of that problem. You see, the problem usually is because we ignore the instruction. And here's what the instruction says. True. If the statement agrees with the information, so you dealing with the information, yes. If the statement agrees with the claims of the writer. False. The statement contradicts, the same for the no. Statement contradicts. But not given has got little variation. You see, not given in the case of a true, false, there is no information because you're dealing with the information. But when you're dealing with the ideas, it's a little sophisticated. And that's why yes, no, not given is harder. It seems like for many candidates, yes, no, not given seems 80% not given. And it's not given, it's not there. Like, why is that yes? I don't understand it. Why is that no? I don't understand it. So not given, it's impossible to say something. For example, let's see an actual example here. So what can you do about them? First off, I would recommend you to break down sentences. Do not search for the entire statement. This is really hard. We'll start with a little harder statement. So yes, no. If the statement agrees with the views of the writer, with the claims of the writer. By the way, starting from the Cambridge 13, they started changing not the views of the writer, but with the claims of the writer. But it does not really much make a change, you know. Anyways, you're dealing with opinions. It's now clear that Lapita could sail into a prevailing wind. Rule number 1, look always from a question to the passage, not the other way around. If you have a passage and you're checking the question, everything seems either like true or like not given. You should always look from a question to the passage. So you've got A, B, C. Literally, what is going on in here is this one. So you have to find the evidence for A, for B, and for C, right? So that's what the statement is saying. You've got A, you got B, you got C. You have to verify 3 pieces of the information in either true or yes, it does not matter. You go for the passage, you find the location, and then you have to check the pieces. So A, okay, A, agree. B, B. But what about the C? Is there anything about C? What is the answer? What is the answer? If you have A like A, B like B, but there is nothing about C, the answer is not given. And many people say it's false because it's too good to be not given, because I found 2 pieces, only 1 piece is missing, and it should be false at least, not given, because I found 2 things, right? So she likes apples. So we've got information about apples. We've got information about Susan, who likes the fruits, right? But we have no information if she likes bananas too. So it's not going to be false, but it's going to be not given because you have no information about it. That's how it works. So break down this statement into pieces, A, B, C. Just like in the mathematics, when you've got a long problem, what is the step number 1? You think about how you can contract that information, right? And then you solve it. You do the same. So you've got 3 things here. You're not checking, it's not clear, then Leviticus say, you're checking, is that clear? First, is that clear now? Secondly, could really Lapita sail? And could it sail not only to the wind, but into a prevailing wind? 3 things. Could it sail into a prevailing wind? And is that now clear? Actually, there are 3 questions, not 1. Try to take that approach. So that's what the passage says about it. So here, with 20% of the questions, yes, no is one of them, you really have to read slowly. You have to read fast 80%. You just locate, stop, copy, paste. With 20%, you have to read slowly. Otherwise, you will not understand it. And 20% of the questions want you to understand. All this presupposes one essential detail says, Professor Lapita had mastered the advanced art of sailing against the wind. And there is no proof. There is no proof. You remember the first part of it? It's now clear. Is that now clear? Is that now clear? No, there is no proof. They could do any such thing. What kind of thing? Sailing against the wind. We've got Lapita, we've got sailing into a wind, but we have no information. We have the information, but the information says that it hasn't been proved yet, right? There's been this assumption they did. So they were just assuming that probably they could sail into a prevailing wind, but people have bailed, but nobody has any idea that what their canoes looked like. So we do not have the evidence. The answer is gonna be no. This is contradiction. So this is the example of harder question. You see, it is possible to ace it. But if you look like, could Lapita sail into, if you look at like an entire statement, it's gonna be hard. Whenever you see the question is too hard, break it down into the pieces to make it easier and check the pieces instead of whole sentence. So in the case of the true-false, crops produced in vertical farms will depend on the sea. So what are the ABC we have? Crops that were produced in the vertical farm. They will very much depend on the season. And the question is, will they depend on the season if they were cultivated in a vertical farm? So all you have to do is to locate the keywords again. So keywords are, supporters of vertical farming claim many potential advantages for the system. For instance, crops would be produced all year round. Crops produced in vertical farms will depend on the season. Will be produced all year round. Will not depend on the season. The answer is false. All right? Okay. So, any questions? All right. So, hack number 4. Sneak out the time for the multiple choice questions in the listening. So I'm not going to talk about section 1. You know it pretty well. But the hardest questions in the listening are the multiple choice questions. And in order to ace that part of the exam, you really have to steal the time on your own. Where do you think you will steal the time? Do you steal time for multiple choice questions? Or are you a poslushny candidate? So look at the section 1. In this part of the test, you will. So now check your answers from 1 to 6. Never do that, okay? Because it's very unfair to have the same amount of time for section 1 and section 3. So you have to compensate it yourself. You have to maneuver the time. So a section 1 or part 1, like they call it right now, right? So we've got 3 big intervals in terms of the time. So before each section starts, you have time to look through the questions. In between every section, with the exception of section 4, you have time to look at the rest of the questions. And after each section, you've got some time to check your answers. And guess what? How do you check your answers? My students usually stare at the paper. What do you have to do instead? You have to steal the time. I usually say it, you know? It says, look at the part 1. So what do? You have like 10 questions here. How long do you think you will look at it? The name, address, you know? So this is ideal time for you to steal. So your eyes should literally be like a scanner. Name, okay. You look through section 1 like in 20 seconds max. And that you still have 1 minute because they give you 1 minute and 20 seconds approximately before section 1 launches. And they give you, now you have some time to look at the rest of the question. So you have to go to the soonest part that contains multiple choice questions. So it might be in the part 2, it might be in the part 3. But today, part 3 is almost impossible without multiple choice questions. When I tell you, look at the part 1, you'll have some time. So you really do that. You're obedient, but you shouldn't be too obedient. You quickly scan through the questions in the section 1, and that you've got still a lot of time left. Your one ear is there with the part 1, so name. If they ask the girl's name, I'm going to come back. And then you do not come back until the girl is asked her name. Your one ear is there. You drop your ear in part 1. So, Anne, how should I call you? Can I get your full name? And when she starts spelling out her name, you come back to the part 1. So, don't practice it only in the exam. You have to practice it before the exam multiple times so that you start feeling with your body how much time you have left. For example, I managed to read very carefully 5 questions in section 3 before the actual answer for the part 1 is said. And when I usually enter the exam, people nearby think I'm stupid because I always close my ears. I don't want distraction because I know that I will manage to read for sure 4 questions, multiple choice questions in the section 3 before it starts. They're like, why is she closing her ear? She's listening. But I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to read section 3 when section 3 starts because I think no native speaker can actually, like if you put them and ask them to do section 3 and you play it at the moment, they cannot read simultaneously and listen and understand. So does multitasking exist? Multitasking. Well, it's a debatable question. So now they've come to a common ground and they are saying multitasking can exist only if one task requires your attention and the other task does not require your attention. For example, you're doing reading and at the same time you are playing some music of Mozart, I don't know, right? You're not actively listening, you're just hearing it. But actually you're reading. When 2 things happen, but one of the tasks prevails in terms of deserving your attention. But when 2 things deserve your attention, you cannot split your brain into 2. You cannot read, analyze, and at the same time listen. It's impossible. It doesn't happen. So if you want experiment, go home, print out section 3. Don't let yourself read it, play it, and then try to do it. You will either read or you will just hear. You will not listen even. And you start like, oh, this is some words in the B1, so it's going to be B because I heard the word. So, okay, of course you will hear the word. That's the catch. That's the trap, lavushka, for 5.5. So they will make use of the words without changing so that you fall into that trap. And usually the answer, which is wrong, usually contains the same word without being paraphrased. So, and what is the number one hack for the multiple choice questions is to read them carefully and to analyze them. But it takes a lot of time. You will compensate the time by stealing from the other parts, from previous parts. So you have to be 2 steps ahead, say, right? And, well, it always seems like that. But B was sad too. But C was sad too. Of course, all of them will be sad. Who told you in the multiple choice question, they will not say the other options that are wrong. They will be sad. And I say, try to predict the correct answer. Predict. And I feel like I'm asking the guys to do this stuff. You know, predict. I feel like it's B. And I'm like, why do you think it's B? Because, I have it. It's intuition. It's telling me. It's like, then why A? Because my name is Anora. A. Okay, my name is Barno, so B, right? So it doesn't work in that way. So do not practice prediction in this way. Practice logical prediction. So what could be done? You shouldn't read the questions and listen to the speaker at the same time. So you shouldn't get down to them only after they have been announced. Section 3. Now you will hear, no, don't do it. Sure, fire away for 5.5 in the listening. You shouldn't read them fast because they will have some catch. You should manage your time so that you make time to work them out. You should pay attention to the little words which might change the whole course of the answer. What these little words are? Any suggestions? Little words. So the main reason the speaker gives for the increase in the population in X area is, so here, the little word is the word main reason. So it implies that reasons will be given. Main reason for the population increase. Speaker will mention a reason. Speaker will mention the main reason. You do not need a reason, you need a main reason. These are the little words. And learn to tell apart the options. It's like they are the same.